Welcome to Being at Home with George during the time of COVID. And I'd like to start off by talking about this idea of creating a vision of possibility for what? For ability to embrace whatever comes up, to say yes and whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, the idea is to say yes to it and at the same time generate the hope, creating a possibility that we can live into. And it's interesting because this is a time of year, it's the 15th of December, so we got 16 more days in this year. And it's interesting because we're coming to the end of the year, and then at the same time, each ending, there's a beginning. And so it's a time where, especially during the holidays, things tend to slow down. And it's a great opportunity for us to reflect and to think about what we want to create or to think about how we want to end the year. And at the same time, understanding that how we end the year will also be how we begin the year. And so for me personally, it feels like a time of lull or a time of it's not much going on between now and the end of the year. And so what's always helped me throughout my process is to just think about it just a day at a time and keeping it simple. And it's interesting because depending on my mood, if I am feeling good, then I can keep it in the day and then just go through each sequence of what I need to do. But if I'm struggling, if I have a discomfort, or if I get nasal, or if I'm struggling with not feeling good, then it comes down to just a breath at a time and being able to just manage each moment. But the importance of that is that each moment, the only time we have is now, and how we use now will determine the next moment, but it also will determine tomorrow. And so with that in mind, what really helps me, especially in this time when there's not a lot going on, I have to generate the hope. But as well as generating the hope, I have to think about it. I like to see life as an adventure. Every time I see a roadblock, I turn it into stepping stone and challenge myself to say, well, what's the lesson here? What do I want to bring to it? Because what I bring to it makes all the difference in the world. And so something happens, and then I can interpret it in any way I'd like if I can create space between stimulus and response. And so this time, just really thinking about how I want to end the year. I want to end the year just living the day at a time and really thinking about my core values and me showing up so that I can show out, but also being able to self-regulate when I'm feeling a little down or if there's a little not much going on. I don't really get bored because I'm always looking at things because I see life as an adventure. And this guy, Maxwell Maltz, and he wrote a book called The Magic Power of Self-Image Psychology. And he talks about it. There's a phrase that I like to read and reflect on every morning. He says, life should be an exciting adventure. The sun should rise within you each day in terms of the richness of your feelings and the sharpness of your perceptions. You should carve out goals for yourself that will inspire you to enthusiastic action. Going toward life with vigor, no matter what your age, you should never fear death or anxiety. And he says, one of the greatest adventures in living is getting to know yourself better. And so we could say, well, I don't want to go through this and it's challenging. And I think in Thich Nhat Hanh with the non-toothache, you don't appreciate feeling like normal or not having any unpleasantness. That's just normal and you just take it for granted. But when you have unpleasantness and then you reflect on, oh, okay, now I can appreciate the non-toothache. I can appreciate not being congested. I can appreciate not having a lot of challenges at the end of the year. So we have to get to this place where we realize that it can be a great adventure. If nothing else, we can get to know ourselves. How are we reacting or responding to things? And that's going to tell us who we are. Normally, we know who we are based on how we relate in relationship to other people, but also in relationship to ourselves. So I think it's more important for me is what I bring to it. So no matter what's happening, I look at it as an adventure and getting to know myself better and being in that growth mindset that asks me, what's the lesson here? And then learning from that. And I can recall when I was feeling the effects of when I got my booster shot, and it was really challenging. And what I noticed as I was experiencing it, that's when I was taking it a breath at a time and just focusing. And I know it was really challenging because when I looked at the clock, I was hoping it was going to say like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And so how did I get from 9 o'clock to by the time 2 o'clock came around, or I don't know what time it was, but then everything broke and I started feeling better. But what I was really noticing is that after I'd gone through that discomfort by going through it a breath at a time and just managing it, that after it was done, I was one of the happiest people in the world. It was like a relief. And now that I'm not experiencing that, I'm still feeling this idea of the non-toothache or the non-unpleasantness, and really embracing and being grateful that I can breathe in and breathe out and feel really good. And so for me, it's really important. And so when I think about how just getting through that day at a time, moment at a time, and overcoming that all of these roadblocks become stepping stones. And I'm reminded of Steph Curry breaking the 3-point record. I think it was 2,974, and he broke that record. And I'm sure that he overcame a lot of obstacles. It's been a hard, long road to hoe, you might say. And watching him from afar and noticing his practice habits and all the things he's been doing. And even though you could say that some of it was hereditary or in his genes, but the main thing is we all have this potential, and his potential is expressing itself because he puts in the work and he seems to be enjoying what he's doing. So you can see that he's on an adventure. This is an adventure for him. I haven't talked to him, but just watching him seems like it's an adventure. And he is really seeing the idea of the richness of his feelings and the sharpness of his perceptions. He's just really having a lot of fun. And even last season, when they weren't winning that many games, he was enjoying the game and expressing himself more and more. And so I think about that. How do you get to 2,974 shots? One shot at a time. Can't shoot them all at once. And so just to feel happy for him, and also to realize that we all have this potential. Maybe it's not 3-point shots, but it could be something else, where if we could have this due diligence of this continuous application of balanced effort or energy, and you don't get to 2,974 made threes unless you have sustained effort. It's a balanced effort, so there's some poise there. So you might say there's a confidence, or there's a faith, and there's an attention to the lawfulness of how do you do that? What are the essentials for being able to develop that skill set that allows you to make so many 3-point shots? And so you definitely need that diligence, but you also have to have this ability to be focused or locked in. And you also need to have faith, but the faith has to be verified. And so when we start to understand how we error correct and how we notice, okay, so I missed that shot, the next shot I have to make an adjustment. And he's been able to do that over this period of time. And I think he's just getting started on some level. But the lesson there for us is one shot at a time, one breath at a time, and just managing the moment, not only generating the hope, but we can bring this sense of adventure and the idea that it's an amazing adventure in living to get to know ourselves a little bit better each time. And so that's the challenge for us, is now that we're ending a year, how do we want to end it? We get to choose that. And then we can begin the year with the heart humming and both feet running. But it's a focus on what we bring to it. And we can practice that even when we're not feeling good. We can practice this idea of noticing what we're bringing and appreciating the simple thing, like just being able to breathe in and breathe out.